and I'll try to follow because it
All
sounds
right,
like
guys.
slides ready.
Yeah, I'm prepared, man, on slides for sure. So, yeah, hey guys, thanks for tuning in again. We're back at it again. We got Justin Lee Howell, my co-host on all my videos, almost on my YouTube channel, Uplift Crossroads, and then I'm Sean Christopher Jenkins. Thanks for tuning in. So, this is a continuation of the video we just did on my YouTube channel, Uplift Crossroads. Let me go to it real quick. So this video is called Preach for the Day Part 2. So obviously the first video we did was Preach for the Day. I should have said Part 1, but you guys know it's Part 1. All right, so for this video we were talking about this book right here. So you guys should totally get it. It's an amazing book. Me and Justin, we're going to break this book down for you guys and really explain just how we were going to apply this, all the case studies and all the suggestions this author gave to our ministries and stuff like that. And she was just talking about how the Bible was formulated, how the Bible came into being. And just from that alone, we can receive new revelations, new insight about God, and just get a new dynamic and new feel for the Bible and how to relate with people and preach the gospel in a way that reaches even more people. So, like, yeah, it's this book right here. All right, so title for today. Well, I already said the title, preach for today. So the church and the preacher must be in the time so they can reach those people in their time. So we're focusing in on chapter 2, adapting to popular culture. And I need to totally get out of this now so I can go to the excerpt because this is a continuation of the last video we did. So I'm going to go back to finish saying what we were saying about the Bible isn't devoid. Go to page 16 of this book that we're doing this video on. The author reads the text of the Hebrew Bible, so the Old Testament, the Pentateuch, anything like that. So Genesis to Deuteronomy, Genesis to First and Second Kings. It's debatable what the Hebrew Bible is or whether anything like that. All right. So the text of the Hebrew Bible did not arise out of nothing. So ex nihilo, like it didn't just come from nothingness. Like, and then also it's not devoid of any influence from the political, social, or cultural interests of ancient Israel or its surrounding cultures. On the contrary, the text of the Old Testament reflect the influences of multiple traditions. Ancient Israel was never a people in isolation, and its literary stylings testify to contact with its neighbors, nestled among powerful empires like Egypt and Assyria, and perched beside the Mediterranean Sea. Israel was well situated for interaction with surrounding civilizations. Justin, I'm gonna play devil's advocate. I'm just now seeing this, man. Like,
Okay.
I saw that. Okay, the Hebrew Bible, right? Oh dang, the Hebrew Bible is not part of any influence from political, social, or cultural interests. So that made me think about how people preach in a way that's like focusing on whatever political party they associate with. So they literally, like, if they're Republican, they'll basically say vote for Trump, like every single message they'll say. Or like if they're Democrat, they'll be like, you got to get tested, right? You got to love your neighbor by getting tested, so like, yeah, they
fit in their own agenda somehow.
Yeah, and honestly, that's basically what the author is saying a little bit, that some of the writers did that, which that goes with what we were saying in the last video. Like, if that's true, which it is, that explains why there's some places in the Bible that contradict the other, right? Like, why does it say this here, but then it contradicts itself here, right?
Yeah.
And that's what the author was saying in the book, in a lot of books I'm reading in seminary school. Like, it was saying, like, it's not really contradictions, they're innovations. That's one way of looking at it, right? That means, like, it used to be like this, now it's this way. Or, yeah, that's one way of looking at it, but it's also this way. But then also, okay, it could be a political view or a bias or a stereotype, and it could be another one, right? So that's what she was saying. Like, she's saying there's revelations, more revelation behind going deeper with the contradictions, right? So yeah, I'll get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because I was reading something about, I think I mentioned this in the previous video. It's interesting that all 4 of the Gospels, they can tell the same story can be written down like 3 or 4 times in the Gospel by different authors, and they kind of have different accounts of, like, for example, like how Jesus's body was found after, like, after it disappeared from the tomb. If you notice, like some of the details are different, and some people jump on that by saying, "Oh, it's a contradiction." But it's I was reading that that's even more of a testament that it was somebody's testimony than four people collaborating and say, okay, guys, we're going to say this and this and this in order to trick everybody. No, the fact that they were all slightly different showed that they were eyewitness reports or secondhand information or testimonies that they wrote down. Like it showed, like the fact that they were influenced by the people, influenced by the authors, almost gives it more authenticity to show that, okay, this wasn't a conspiracy written up by people. This was like how someone saw it, like how it was affected by their eyewitness, how it was affected by the audience that they're trying to reach, how it was affected by like their culture and stuff. So those contradictions, and I wouldn't even say they're contradictions, explained to me actually lends more authenticity to it.
Okay. Yeah, that's something else she said too. But a lot of times when people see, especially unbelievers and people who want to like, atheists, they want to
Yeah.
like antagonize you and
Yeah.
start to like or use something as fuel to the fire. Like they'll use that like, why does it contradict itself here? And you believe that? Like, like
Some of the contradictions I don't think are pure contradictions either. Like we have to look at, and we'll go into like the narrative style. Like we've said before, like different cultures have kind of write in a different way depending on what was like popular back then. Like
yeah,
in a good example that atheists use that contradicts is like somewhere in the Bible it says like for I've seen like the face of God or the glory of God, but then like in Moses's time it said like no one can behold the face of God because they can't handle it or something like that.
yeah,
People are like, oh, like that's a contradiction. But no, I think the first century was just them being poetic. Like by them saying the face of God, they mean like the glory of God or like the influence of God. And like nowadays, like we still say, oh, I feel like I saw God in this. Like they don't really see God in it. They saw his influence. They saw his touch. They saw like like a little like his effects.
mhm,
So it's like it's more poetic. So you kind of have to understand like what the context is of the culture or the writer and stuff like that. I really don't think the contradictions that atheists like to use are contradictions. I think they're just like you have to understand the writing style.
right. Yeah, and that's something else with the contradiction. Like it's just about who wrote it. Like,
Yeah.
like because there's different views, biases. Because that's another thing too. Like they were talking about how going back with David, the scrolls, the scribes, they didn't care for women like that. Like it was patriarchal. Like they always say the Bible's patriarchal, right?
Yeah.
Because the people who wrote had a bias in that time period against women, right? That's not even a debate. So like that's why it never included all the people who were David's daughters. I don't even think it really excluded majority of his sons, really. But I mean, name how many daughters he had, because he had more daughters than sons.
Yeah.
That's what they say, right? And I don't know. I don't know if that's a thing, but like I feel like most people, even with Jacob, that's a good example. With Jacob, we know the 12 tribes of Jacob, right? We know his 12 sons, but he had more daughters than sons. I didn't even know that. I
Yeah.
did not know that at all.
That's sad.
Like, why don't we know that? Like, you know what I'm saying? Why did they write that in? That's messed up. That's messed up. You know what I'm saying? But
Stuff.
like
Yeah.
learning stuff like that, you get to see like, oh man, there's way more to the story than what we get. You see what I'm saying? And like studying the Bible deeper, then you can see like the influence, the culture. Then you can give other people's voices that didn't have voices, like all of David's daughters or Jacob's daughters. Like you see what I'm saying? Like so, there's different ways of like going deeper in the Bible and stuff like that. So yeah, let me finish reading this. I want to be done with this one. So yeah. On the contrary, the text of the Old Testament reflected influences of multiple traditions. All right, yeah. That I wanted to talk about that too. So like a lot of times people think like we should be separate from them. do not have fellowship, any fellowship with them. What does Christ have to do with BL? What does a believer have to do with an unbeliever? Like that's what people always say, right? But like to influence people, you have to, what does it take to be influential, Justin? You know what I'm saying? Like, is a person influential if they think they're all high and mighty and better than other people, right? So like, I was gonna I actually posted this today, so I'm gonna go to my Facebook page. I want you guys to see this. Justin, you can answer when you're ready, man. But on my Facebook page right here, I just tweeted. I posted this right here. Let me make it bigger so you guys can see it. You can barely see it, but anyways, it says people who look down on other people don't end up being looked up to, right? So people who belittle, who's um, who's condescending. I'm trying to find who's domineering. That's the word I'm looking for. Who's domineering, right? People who are anything like that, nobody will ever listen to anything you have to say. Now you may force people to do it out of fear or whatever like that, but you're not going to reach as many people as you could reach, right? So what does it take to be influential, man? You got to be in the times a little bit. You got to be relatable. You got to be easy to talk to. You see what I'm saying? And easy to understand, right? That's influence, right? That's like Deion Sanders. Like, who's the most influential person right now? I think it's Deion Sanders, hands down. You know what I'm saying? Just because he's so in the now. Like he's always has been too. It's not like just something that came out of blue. No, he's always been like that. Like, so just I'll let you talk, man. I'm talking a lot.
I
Man,
think
so.
just having, yeah, I didn't say mine because I wanted to see where you're going first. Yeah, I think for influential too, you have to be confident in like what you're saying as well. And like that was, I think that goes back to like what Jesus's characteristics, like he just had that authority. But yeah, I think for like yeah, for a lot of like the stories we see in the Bible, we also see like um what they read, they believed with all their heart, like it came from God. They like heard from God. Like they had no doubt in their mind that this was like the word of the Lord. And I think that's what gives a lot of the Old Testament like such power, because like they came, like they were God influenced, or they came from God. And they just told like the story with like that authenticity. Like I think that's why it's so influential, is because like there's no doubt in our mind that this is true. Like it, of course, like it left it up for the reader to decide if they believed it or not, but they weren't like wishy-washy on that stuff. They didn't like have all these analytical discussions on like why this was right, why this was wrong. Like I think that's what Bible study and small groups are for, so you can discuss those things outside of that context. But the stories lends itself credence because like it's being influenced by that confidence or like an absolute trust in God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like influences are multiple traditions. So like yeah, we're a lot of times that's another bad thing too. So like I want you guys to see it while I say it. So you know how they say the church should be doing the influencing, not being influenced by the world, right? So
Mm.
somebody could look at that. This right here, just this second sentence. On the contrary, the text of the Old Testament reflect the influences of multiple
Mm.
traditions. They could look at that and be like, "Man, that's a bad thing." Like being influenced by the world, multiple. Like maybe that word was too strong to use for her. Maybe it should just be like, um, they're not oblivious. They're not devoid of the culture, like she said, right? They know what their culture, what their traditions are of the people, and they can reach those people based on those traditions, based on that culture. So that's what she's trying to say, just in case somebody wants to twist that a little bit. Because
Yeah.
that's why, yeah.
It's kind of interesting though, because like I could see how that could be a bad thing. It's like what you were saying too, like they left out the information on Jacob's daughters and David's daughters.
Mm-hmm.
So we do miss out on a lot of those stories.
Yeah.
And even said it herself in like the end of chapter 2. It's like she was just wondering like how many stories did we not hear about, because a lot of them were more interested in like flood stories or court stories. So it's like, how many stories did we miss that could have been useful, but it just wasn't applicable for the culture? So, I mean, that's I feel like there's not a lot of use in thinking about it because there's like nothing we can do about it. But
Right.
it is an interesting thing to think about.
Hmm. And that's something else too, man. You made me think about it. Like, um, why were the books of the Bible chosen that we have today for the
Yeah,
American Bible, right? But even with Catholics, they have different books of the Bible than
right.
Methodists, and like I forgot what other religions, but some religions have like more of the scrolls, more of the writings
I
than
think
others.
yeah, I think like Muslims and Judaism and of course like Mormons, I know they omit or include some of their own books as well, or
Yeah,
creed it. I think Catholicism called them like creeds. I think they have some creeds that we don't use.
right. Yeah. So yeah, that's another deep discussion, guys. But let's keep on
Yeah,
going, man.
yeah, off top. Yeah, that is off topic.
Right. So ancient Israel was never a people in isolation. So like that's the whole point of this, man. I'm gonna go ahead and end this and go to something else. But like we can't be we can't be isolated from everybody. Like Israel was well situated for interaction with surrounding civilizations. Like literally, God put Israel in the very middle of everything. Like every other nation, like even today, like they're literally in the middle of everything. So
Mm,
like, and that says a lot. That means God wants us to be influencing everybody surrounding and around us. Like He has us there for a reason, to be a light on a hill, right? So people can go to it for shelter, go to it for light, in
yeah,
this dark world, right? That's
that's
why.
what
Yeah.
that's what holy. Yeah, that's what holy means. Is like it's a translation for set apart.
Hmm.
So like God still put Israel in the middle of everything, but he wanted them to like live a higher standard to show like the other nations like this is how you're supposed to live. And that goes
Right,
back to the verse like they're in the world but not of the world.
right. In the world, but not other. Yeah, that's what I was looking for. I was looking for something like that. So yeah, guys, that's what we gotta be, man. Like we can't be devoid of our cultures, of our music,
Mm.
of our movies, shows, whatever you want to slice, however you want to slice it, right? Cause how you gonna reach a kid if you talk about something in black and white? Like what's in black and white that used to come on? I'm trying to think. It's real
Oh, Andy
popular.
Griffith show.
That's what I was looking for. Yeah, Andy Griffin. Like you can't reference the Andy Griffin. Nobody knows Andy. I don't know Andy Griffin. Don't
I
reference Andy
I
Griffin.
love Andy Griffith.
Right, but I mean, who? No, I don't. I feel like
No
normal
one else
millennials
does.
would know it.
Yeah.
But like but yeah. So like we gotta know. We can't be so devoid of culture we can't reach people. Right. That's
Mhm.
what the whole point the
Yeah.
author is talking about. Like how to preach for today, part 2. That's today's video, man. Like this is one way to preach, man. You can't be oblivious to what's going on. You have to know what's going on around you, so that you can know how to interact with the people around you that's surrounding you. Just like Israel had to know what the other cultures and traditions was doing around them, so they know if they should have anything to do with them or not. Because one thing they don't say about Israel, Justin, and man, I'm learning so much, man. Is Israel are the Israelites a race? Is it a ethnicity? Is it a people? Or is it a whole diverse group of people that God just chose? Like, you know what I'm saying? Because you look at the Israelites, you got Rahab. Rahab was a Canaanite. Ruth, she was a Moabite, right? And this is the line of Jesus, by the way, guys. Like, like this is just what the line of Jesus, right? So, like, you got people who were Israelites, but what was Noah before Israelite? I don't know. Like, I don't remember. But like, either way it goes, like, you got all these different the people who surrounded Israel, the Canaanites, Moabites, Amorites, uh, Ephraimites, like all these different people. Some of them want to be Israelite. And was God going to deny them that right? No. Like if they want to be a part of Israel and be one of God's people, God will let them in. Right? That's what happened with Rahab. That's what happened with Ruth. It's a lot of other people too. So like, yeah, man, like people don't talk about that at all, Justin. I mean, that was a side note,
Mm.
sidebar. It just related a little bit what we were saying. But let me read the next quote. It's on page 16 of the book, The Old Testament for a Complex World by Cameron B.R. Howard. Let me make it bigger so everybody can see it in the huge, big old text, just in case You guys got glasses like me. All right, so don't be out of touch. Around 539 BCE, when Cyrus the Great conquered Jerusalem, the exiles began to return in waves to Judah under Persian rule. The books of Ezra and Nehemiah provide the Bible's primary description of the return. Other exiles remain in Babylon, Egypt, and many other places outside of Judah. So the post-exilic biblical texts reflect experiences of life in Judah under foreign occupation, as well as Jewish life in Diaspora. I don't even know what that means, really, Justin. I don't
Yeah, I
know.
don't know what that is either.
Okay. But basically, like it said, don't be out of touch, right? So the whole point with just this excerpt and why I got it, and Justin, if you got something, you can go ahead and go first. So I can look at my notes. But the whole point why I got that text right here is that Persia. So we know a few people in the Bible that were in Persia during their time period. So Nehemiah's one, Esther's another one, right? And then the Israelites were in Persia when they were in captivity. After Babylonian captivity, well, after it was Assyrian captivity, Babylonian captivity, and then Persia took out the Babylonians. So, yeah, that's when the Israelites were scattered, and some of them were in Persia, and Cyrus let some of them go back to Israel, right? So Cyrus was the king of Persia. So the writers of the Bible, was he Persian? No, I don't think he was Persian, Justin. I think he was
I don't
Babylonian.
think he was.
Yeah, he's
Right?
Babylonian. Yeah, he let the Israelites go back. By the way, there's people still in Persia when some of the Israelites went back to Jerusalem, like we read in Nehemiah. So the writers of the Bible were not ignorant of their culture, the
Mm.
people of Persia, right? They were not oblivious to their surroundings. So you got Babylonian culture, Assyrian culture,
Mm.
Amorite culture, like it's different cultures that were going on. So like they weren't out of touch with those people, right? So like they had to know what was going on, right? And so yeah, so that's why like when we're preaching the Bible, we got to know like the setting, know what's going on, know the surroundings, know the text, like really know it that way, so that we can understand why something's being said, why somebody acted in the way that they acted, or
Yeah.
anything like that, because that's going to lead to more revelation and stuff like that. So
And I think the fact that they were spread out to so many countries as well lent to the fact that the authors knew that they had to reach out to different cultures as well.
mm-hmm.
So, like, you still, I don't know, I feel like the most interesting part for me on studying the Old Testament is just the fact that there's always like hidden context in their writing that you don't understand just because like their culture is so far removed from ours. Like it's crazy. Like the context that historians can pull up pales in comparison of all the stuff we've lost over the centuries as well that we just would will not be able to understand. And as the as Cameron, as the author of the book, kind of says as well, like there are just so many oral traditions that have been lost. Like the main source of communication or traditions of just that have been passed down from ages are lost because like we can't trace them back. But I think like reading Nehemiah, reading about like books of the exiles, you realize that the Old Testament books still apply to them as well because they were, no matter where they were, like they were still in like very similar situations. So I think that's very impressive that it can speak to so many cultures, but then speak to where they were at now. And I think that translates really well to what we're supposed to do now as well. Like we need to find a way to meet people or meet kids or meet a new generation where they're at.
Right.
Like no kid will want to like just listen to a bunch of rules about what they're supposed to do without coming to the choice that they need Jesus.
Right.
So I think just as like the Old Testament tries to reach different cultures, we do need to find a way of like, how do we meet people in the middle, or how do we meet their needs,
Right.
not how do they meet our needs. Like
Mm-hmm.
we've got Jesus, we're set. But other people like I don't know, they still got a big journey on them. They're the ones who need our help.
Right. Yeah, you made me think about something, man. I kind of forgot a little bit, but not really. But I was gonna say I'm not gonna go in it. I'm not gonna talk about for this video, but the book talked about low literacy rates and how
Hmm.
people in that time period, right, when the Bible was being formulated and stuff like that. Um, not everybody, no, not everybody could read or write, especially during Jesus time
Right.
period. Like
Oh yeah.
nobody could really read or write. Like only the social elite could do it. You know, scribes, of course. So scribes technically were in like the king's court and stuff like that. We're about to read that too, and then also kings and queens, they could read too. So like, it was only the social elite that could read. Everybody else could not read. So like they were the regular person just relied on oral sayings and relied on other people telling them what was being read, right? So just in that sense alone, like I'm gonna wait to do that video, but I'll spoil it a little bit. But just in that sense alone, like people who teach the Bible, like we have a huge responsibility, especially
Mm.
preachers and teachers of the Bible. Like you can't just say anything. Like you're gonna be held accountable by God by what you say because people are the people's lives are at stake. Their souls are at stake by what you say and say that what's right and wrong, what God wants to be done. Like you better make sure what you're saying is correct, right? Because people can go astray based on what you say, right? And yeah, even said it in the book of James, like not many of you should be leaders or teachers because your punishment stricter is harsher than everybody else's, right? So yeah, the scribes was no different, man. Like these people were translating the Bible, translating these scrolls that they were getting, and trying their best to write in a way that made God understandable to the people of their culture, right? So, yeah, man. So I'm gonna read this part of the book. And Justin, if you got something to say, man, go ahead and stop me. Because this part's pretty quick, right? I'm gonna keep this video short. So this is talking about scribe, like on page 32 of the book, The Old Testament for a Complex World. Scribes received and promulgated popular oral sayings in written form, even as they were also transmitting texts among elites. I'm gonna read that next part. We know that the scribes behind the Bible were deeply engaged with culture of their time. They were not set apart in some bubble of righteousness removed from the rest of the world. To be sure, the center of many scribes' lives was the temple. Nevertheless, we should not conflate ancient scribal life with images of medieval monasticism. It's basically monks, guys. All right, ancient Israelites, scribes had families, and the profession was, in fact, their job. They were paid for it, and it provided them with financial security. Many scribes worked for the king and slash or the state, where they navigated or even steered national and international politics. So that's what I was going to say, Justin. After what you said, like the scribes, one thing about the scribes that she wrote about, but she only said in like one sentence. But like out of the whole book, which scribes were a little bit out of touch. Because remember, I told you guys that the scribes were the social elite. Like they were with the kings and everybody else that could read and had it all the luxury of life, all the luxuries of life that you could ask for in that time period, right? So like they were probably a little bit, just slightly out of touch compared to like a kid who was out there, right? You see what I'm saying? Like out there that couldn't read, but they had games and stuff that they did. You see what I'm saying? Like they
Mhm.
were just probably slightly, just a little bit out of touch. You know what I mean? But not really. You guys see what I'm saying? So like, yeah. So I think that right there could lead to like other like questions about how the Bible, why certain things are said in the Bible,
Hmm.
because from the scribe perspective they could be a little bit like off. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like so that's one thing I got. I want to say that after what you said, but I forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have anything though with that?
Yeah, I do like that part where it's saying like the scribe, that's like their job. So
Hmm.
sometimes you'll see some descriptions explain it really well. Like the scribes are like right in the middle of like other jobs or other people in their departments, I guess you could call them. Like people came to them to like um to store documents, to have documents written up. So like they had a lot of interpersonal relationships. And as the book says, like they probably shared what they wrote or that information to people within their circle. So yeah, they were. Yeah, it's not like they were locked in a monastery or something like that, forced to write day in and day out. They actually did interact with people like that. I didn't know. I don't. I guess I haven't read that part yet about like how scribes were a little out of touch, but I feel like that is an important point to show that they were not isolated from the culture. So they probably were. They probably were influenced by the culture a little bit, and like sometimes you'll see like how translations or different versions of the Bible leave they might lose something, they might interpret it in a different way. King James version especially, which was like the first large, mostly accessible English version Bible, had a lot of changes to the language just because um, the scribes or the people translating, for mostly two reasons. They thought, one, they might have mistranslated it. Two, they thought another word would work just as fine or work better, but then it loses that meaning because maybe in English we didn't have that word. It's like that's for me that's an interesting part of language is like some words are just untranslatable. Like in Japanese there's a word for the feeling you get when you see sunlight come through the trees. In German there's a word for someone with a very punchable face. It's just it shows the values of that language sometimes. And like we've already talked on this channel that there's so many differences between American culture and like what is it, Eastern culture. Is it East? Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you see like where values are very different. And I won't go too deep into it because like that can be a whole video on itself, but they're like in language we will like include or miss out on things just because we do have different values and different things, and we have to understand that context.
Right. Yeah. So from the first quote, scribes were not like monks. So that's a good like just
Yeah.
thing to get out because some people actually think like Christians are supposed to be like monks. Like, just
Mhm.
we can't watch this movie, we can't go here, we can't go there, can't go bowling. That's safe, that's secular. Like, like bro, like they as scribes, even the people who wrote the Bible, right, who translated the Bible, they were not renouncing worldly pursuits to devote themselves to the church. Like with certain things, yes, in a sense, like I like the visual of Samuel. Like I can't wait till we do studies on that, Justin. Like how Samuel, since the age of 4, was a priest. Like because Hannah dedicated him to the Lord, right? So she gave him to the Levites so he could be doing all of the duties that a Levite had to do in the temple, right? Or around the temple. So like, but he stayed in the temple. He never went out really, right? So, but he wasn't. It's crazy to say if he was out of touch. Like I need to do more studying, but like everybody else would be celebrating festivals. Like they had festivals like we have in America, basically. So they had Thanksgiving, basically, Christmas. So obviously the Israelites had Passover festival. It's just certain festivals, right, during the year. And like he would be doing the work of the Lord. He really wouldn't even be out there. I don't think he would ever go out there. He would just be doing the work of the Lord. So it has to be a balance, basically, right? So in a sense, like the author's right in saying, yeah, you can't be excluded from the world and stuff like that. But there are some things you have to separate yourself from just to do the work of the Lord. It just depends on where your work is, right? That's another factor too, right? So yeah, so Christians misinterpret what it means to be separate from the Lord all the time. I'm gonna talk about that in a minute. And then also, scribes were not. I said also scribes were not that in touch. So I mentioned that. So we only know the Bible from the social elite perspective, in a sense.
Mhm.
So we don't really know the songs, games, dramas, jokes, etc. that were really in that society.
Yeah,
That
they
people
wouldn't have
who
written that down
what you say?
because they wouldn't have written that down. They only write
Right.
down things that would be for the literate.
Right. Yeah, and I actually didn't put that down. I didn't read that. So Justin, that was page 30 and 31. I'll
Well,
text it to you. Yeah, so that's where that is. Yeah, and there's something else too. We already said scribes were not closed off from the rest of the world, so we can't be closed off from the rest of the world either. And even if they were, like, I mean, come on, guys, like you're gonna miss out on reaching people if you're too out of touch. I think
Right.
we can all agree with that, right?
That's the reason Jesus came was so he could be in the world, like
Right.
connect better.
Wow. Yeah. Why did Jesus come, man? Like, that's a lot of reasons, man. So he could like be closer to us, man. Like, actually interact with us. Like, it's a lot of
Yeah.
reasons. But yeah. Oh, Justin, man. Oh, that I'm gonna wait, but like, we gotta hit that point again. I gotta. There's actually a video I was gonna do, but
Okay.
like, it's just talking about how God's an intimate God. Like,
Oh yeah.
literally, Jesus came down to be with us. Like,
That would
that's
be
how
a good
intimate God is.
that would be a good video because I really think that's where Christianity is set apart from other religions. But yeah, yeah, that's a whole another topic.
Right. I should text you that too, so I don't forget. Let me go ahead and submit. You had anything else?
Yeah, I'll add some stuff while you're typing. Yeah, I do think like that's I don't know, like it does make me like think a lot though as well. It's like what was the like how did the scribes might have interact with other people during that time? And I think like I don't know, like but anyway, applicability for now. I do think like we do have to realize like I'll start out with this. The Bible does tell us that um we do need to think hard about like why we believe in things. Like I'll say up front, like we won't have all the answers, and don't pretend to have all the answers because people can tell when you're faking it. But the Bible does. I think it's Paul probably. Um, he he wrote like 90% of the New Testament or something. But he was saying like we do need to think on like why we believe in something so we can be prepared with an answer. And I think that's very important when we are trying to connect with other people because like if we're just like spouting off like the Old Testament or verses, like people won't connect with that. But if we have thought about like our choice on the matter, like we've said before, like free will is like the greatest gift that God can give us because like we're not robots, we're not automatons. Like we're able, He has given us the freedom to make that choice and the freedom to go on that journey. And the fact that Sean and I and other people have gone in that journey should make our answers more authentic. It should make like why we believe in something more real to somebody. And for some people, that's the most Jesus or the most Bible that they'll see. Like they won't get it from the Bible. They might get it from stories. They might get it from you and me. They might get it from relationships. So I feel like that's very important for us to think about and prepare answers for when people want to know like why we follow something. Because I think that's like the most authentic way for someone to connect to the Bible.
Right. Yeah, I'm gonna move on to the next thing, but that's pretty much the question. I gotta find my book so I can ask the question in the exact way that I want to ask about an intimate God. But
Mhm.
yeah, I'm gonna read these texts and then we're gonna close off the video. Talking about scribe life. So the author of this book, you know, the Old Testament for a Complex World, how the Bible's Dynamic Testimony Points to a New Life for the Church by Cameron B.R. Howard. Yeah, so she was talking about scribe life, and basically she was just saying how the scribes wrote the Bible or just how their lives were. Like we can receive a revelation from God, like just of how we should go about our lives and stuff like that. So like a lot of times people just limit the Bible to the Bible, like, but it's way deeper than that. Like we can receive and glean even more insight about God based on just going deeper with everything, right? So on page 55, the author wrote this about scribe life. She says, "What are the foundational stories of your community? Who tells them? And how are they being told? The formation of the biblical flood story and the court stories remind us all that we do not form faith communities in a vacuum, devoid of any interaction with the world around us." I'm
Mm.
going to read the next one. And then she said on the same page, on the contrary, our worship practices, religious spaces, and social influence membership and mission, all parts of doing church are affected by or are in conversation with the many overlapping cultures that we participate in and that surround us. These may include regional, national, ethnic, and economic cultures, as well as popular culture that are often crosses over those other categories. So yeah, so scribes weren't separate. Like, yeah, you may be, God may say separate, right? Like, if we go there, right? Take this discussion there. But like at the end of the day, you were born in a certain culture. You were born a certain race. You or go to a certain church, with the denomination or whatever. Like you're around certain people. So no matter what, like your culture makes you. Your culture defines you, right? You're not limited by your culture and by your surroundings or anything like that, but like you're a product of every experience and everybody that's around you, right? So yeah, so like the way we do church is affected by that alone, right? That's what the author is saying. Like, so what she was saying with the scribe life, man, is like, let me read it again. Justin, you can say something too if you want, if you got something to say. But yeah, we do not form faith communities in a vacuum, right?
Mm.
It can't. It has to touch and relate with everybody that's surrounding us, all of our experiences. Like, and that's another thing too. Like a lot of times we go through stuff. Why do we go through stuff? We go through stuff so we can reach people who are going through the same thing, right?
Mm.
It kind of relates with. I did a video not too long ago on my YouTube channel talking about that scripture verse. Comfort others in a way that God comforts you.
Mm.
And this is what that's talking about. Like, do your experiences, and the reason why you go through certain things is so you can comfort people who go through the same exact thing, right? You can give them hope when they're going through the same exact thing that God has already brought you over through, right? So the whole point is when you form faith communities, you got to make sure in those faith communities you're not devoid of everything that's going around in your community, everything that's going around in other people's lives. Like, it's all happening for a reason. So, like, the questions were that she asked, what are the foundational stories of your community? Who tells them, and how are they being told? She asked those two questions because even with scribes, they excluded some of the women. Like, they didn't write about all the women in the Bible who should have been wrote about. And they didn't nowhere near. They didn't give those women voices. So that's missing out on those voices and those stories being told. Like, what are the foundational stories of your community? That's different. Nobody has like the same foundational story, right? So you have to figure out what those stories are, right? So you can reach those people in your community so that they can be a part of your faith community. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's a lot of ways of looking at this. Like,
Mm.
Justin, you got anything for these two?
Yeah, like I always enjoyed the stories in Corinthians because like the background of the church in Corinth is kind of crazy because isn't it like um wasn't it like a fortune teller and like some other like odd job misfits? It's like people that were from that day's culture and a bunch of business people that somehow Paul just like pulled together and formed a church in Corinth.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I don't know, it's just insane to me. And like it's because of those it's because of that group of people that Paul needed to devise a certain lesson plan for their situation, just for them, that is still somehow able to be applicable towards us, which I don't know, like I find that amazing because he never would have written those lessons if it wasn't for that misfit community of followers in Corinth.
Mm.
So like that I feel like that just reminds me of this excerpt because it just shows that this is a community that was formed from that culture and yet it's still able to um, give rise to nuggets of wisdom from God.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my points I had was, the church was never truly meant to be separate. They were involved. Even the scribes' life showed that they weren't just influenced by the culture, but they influenced the culture. Like, look
Mm.
what they freaking did. Like, we still got their writings today. Like,
Yeah.
it became more sacred, more relatable, more I mean, the Bible's the best-selling book ever, and it's still the best-selling book now. And how many years it's been? So yeah, man, that's how in touch the scribes were with their culture, their community. So like if in today's video is titled, preach for today, like this is how you preach for today, man. You gotta be so involved with your community. You know what's going on, you know what needs to happen, and you get it done, right? What needs need to be met for everybody, for every race, every age, every generation, and you meet those needs. This is the ball game. This is how it works when it comes to preaching, ministry, church, anything like that. So yeah, and the scribe shows the way for this. This is why it's so important, like to go deeper with the Bible and stuff like that. And then another point I had was, we never truly can be fully isolated from the rest of the world. No matter how much you try to be isolated from the rest of the world, to be separate, you're always going to be influenced by it or surrounded by it, or just you're in it. So you might as well be in it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, be so in tuned with what's going on that you're not lost. And that's how some Christians are. They're so isolated that they're lost. Like, they live in a little fairy tale land. And they say things that are just so off that it hits nothing. Nobody can relate to it. You're like, what did you just say? Like, shut up, man. Like this, it's like what Jesus said. You're the salt of the world. You flavor. Salt has flavor. But some of you guys, like he said, some of you guys are only good to be trampled on because you lost your flavor. You have none. This is how you have no flavor, right? If you're isolated from the rest of the world, you don't know what's going on, and you don't know how to talk to different age groups, different ethnicities. You can't talk to, that's a hard thing to say, but you can't talk and interact with a white person like you do a black person. Like, for example, Justin, I meant to tell you, I'm sorry for saying the N-word on the last few videos, man. I got too comfortable with you. You see what I'm saying? Like,
yeah,
I got way too comfortable.
I thought you were just getting really into it.
No, I got comfortable with you. Like before all this, like all the videos we've done together, I would never do it. I would never even come close. But now, like we're so, close, so we do videos all the time. I'm too comfortable, right? So, like, but yeah, I want to do that with everybody. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that's my whole point. Like,
that's a good example. It depends on your audience. Like with with me, like you wouldn't care, but yeah,
you're right.
Say that to a random person on the street.
Right. Yeah, none of my points with those texts was, we cannot preach the gospel separate or distancing it from our world, communities, and lives. Like the gospel, the Bible was meant to be included with our world today. And some people, even atheists and unbelievers, they try to separate it. But even believers try to separate it. Like the Bible is here and then life is here. Like, no, it's not. They go together, right? Like, you can't separate the two. The Bible is life. Life is the Bible. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's all unfolding before your eyes. So, yeah, so this is how you make the Bible relevant. You bring the Bible where it belongs in people's lives and people's communities, in your lives and your communities. And you make sure that you don't separate it, right? Stop trying to divide what's not meant to be divided. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's what I get from the scribes part. And then this is the con when you try to separate God's word or separate, believers from the community. Like you can't separate believers from the community. You're in it, right? What sense does that make? I'm not gonna have anything to do with them because I'm of this church and I can't. Like what? Like I'm talking about like a neighborhood or something. I'm not talking about like in general. But I'm gonna read this real quick. Like this excerpt from the book. I title it "Cons of Not Being with the Times." Cons of not knowing your surroundings, not knowing your community, your people around you. Like this is how you preach for today. This is not how you preach for today, right? So church too is its own kind of culture with variations according to denomination size, liturgical styles, etc. By tuning into the ways our faith communities navigate complex culture matrices, we may also become aware of the ways we have neglected vital aspects of our own identities or have neglected to translate our core commitments in ways our broader communities can understand and to which they can relate. Just, I'm gonna let you take over, man. If you want.
Let me see. Let me reread that real fast.
Yeah, go ahead. All right, so I highlighted the most important part. So like the first part is talking about churches are coming all different sizes and shapes. Like they do stuff differently. They worship differently, praise differently, talk differently, different lingo's. Can't say amen in every single church. You can't stay quiet in every single church, right? So by tuning into the ways our faith communities navigate complex culture matrices, because you have to navigate. There's no one set way to interact with every single community. I think that's why Mormons stopped going door to door trying to reach people, because they figured out like that stuff's dead now. You don't do that no more.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't know me personally. That's another thing. Like, get to know your community. If you're talking to millennials and people younger than us, we don't want to talk to you if you ain't done nothing for us. If you don't show that you care and show any love for us, like, don't tell me. I get offended when somebody tell me about Jesus. Like, bro, I'm trying to preach. Like, if you would have talked to me for a second, you would have known. Like, just assume because I'm black. Like, that's what some people do. They assume because I'm black, I'm not saved or something. I don't know. But by tuning into the ways our faith communities navigate complex culture matrices, we may also become aware. We can only become aware when we tune in to our communities, go to our culture, to the complex culture matrices, right? So by tuning into those ways, we become aware of the ways we have neglected vital aspects of our own identities, or have neglected to translate our core commitments in ways our broader communities can understand, into which they can relate. See, a lot of times churches are dying off. I don't think that's a debate. Like, church ain't the cool thing to do no more. It used to be. Like, this is the most, I want to say, satanic culture ever, right? We're coming close to Sodom and Gomorrah times almost. Like, it's like that because we don't know our own identities as a church people. We don't understand who we are. And because we don't understand who we are, we can't articulate and make it understandable to the communities that are around us, to the broader community. And we have neglected, and because we don't know who we are, that means we don't know whose we are, because we don't know who we're serving, right? Because we don't know why we're doing it for. And even when you do, you're out of touch with him because you're out of touch with your neighbor, because you're not really loving your neighbor. So how you gonna love God if you don't love your neighbor? Right?
Yeah.
So because you're out of touch with your neighbor, you're gonna be out of touch with him. So you don't know who you really are. So you neglected to translate our core commitments. You're not gonna know your core commitments. So that's what I'm trying to say. Everybody's lost right now. Like when it comes to evangelism, churches, everything. So this is why we're not in the times because we're not in our communities to like figure out how can we navigate in the community? Where do we fit in? And it really starts with you, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, do you really care to know? Do you really care to love? Do you really, want to reach other people in the community? So just I'll let you go, man. This part
Yeah.
is good, man.
I think a lot of times when we just regurgitate things that we hear, especially from the church or what we hear from our parents, we haven't internalized it for ourselves. And for that reason, we don't understand why we believe in something that we do.
Mm.
So if we don't understand it in ourselves, how can we expect other people to accept or understand it for themselves as well? Like, we're basically, I don't know, we're just like the protesters outside of fast food restaurants yelling like meat is murder. And it's like we're expecting other people to follow our roles without really telling them like why we believe in them or why it's a bad thing. We're just like yelling at people off the streets. And like as Sean was saying, like a lot of Christians are realizing that is not, they've quit doing that because they realize that's not actually a good way to go about it, or it's like no one's going to listen to that.
Right.
But if we do think hard about like why do we feel this way or why do we believe in this, that will help us understand like what another person needs. And that's the most important thing, is like how do we meet people's needs, whether it's emotionally or spiritually. So when we're able to make that connection, we're able to start a dialogue, able to start that conversation, we're able to make that connection that doesn't necessarily make the other person believe, but at least helps them understand where you're coming from. And I think that's a big part of like for them to like start to internalize it or start to go on their own journey to accept that for themselves, because again it's like something you have to accept for yourself.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna read this last one because this relates with what we just said, and I'm gonna end the video. Unless you got something else, Justin. But yeah, this part's really good. It's really the questions I want to focus in on. I don't think I'm trying not to talk about anything else, but I tell this one, you know, the innovations. Innovation has many dimensions, which is what the author said right here on page 57 of her book. She said, likewise, we must ask in and of our own faith communities whose stories are not being told, which is what we covered, whose stories are highlighted in our narratives, and whose are neglected. How has our faith, how has our community story changed over time? So that's the thing. All right, dang, these are a lot of questions. We're trying new forms
Yeah.
of storytelling, amplify different voices, and better communicate our stories of a new era for a new era. I already focus in on some of those questions. I want to focus in on I want to focus in on this one in orange right here. How has our community story changed over time? See, our community story has changed. This is a different community than even 2010, even in 2020, right? Even definitely in Jesus' time period. This is a different community. Our stories have changed. It's a different narrative. It's a different setting. It's a different time. So we have to make sure it's not just reaching the people in our time period. Let's go further. We have to make sure that the stories we are telling, which is all God's story, right, is a story that's everybody can get, right? So that change can really happen. And so, yeah, you get what I'm saying, Justin? Like,
Yeah.
so yeah, our communities, our stories, our community stories are changing. It changes every day, really. So we
Mhm.
need to know what the story is, so that we can talk to the people in our community, relate with them, so that things can get done. Because
I
one question, oh, go
think,
ahead.
yeah, I think it's very important that we pay attention to those as well so we can retell those stories.
Yeah.
I think it's I think she made a good point. This I'm pretty sure that's like the last paragraph of chapter 2 that you just showed. I feel like it's very important to pay attention to the full story as well, because it's very easy for us to neglect stories that some other people may find really important,
Mm,
or sometimes to prejudge people as like too far gone. So we need to like pay attention to those people, pay attention to those stories, because they could very well be what the community needs. Like if a story is derived from the community, it could be that it could have like more power for that community than you realize.
yeah. Now I wasn't even gonna go there, but now I want to go there. Like when you just said that, I thought about how many stories of the Bible have you actually heard, Justin, and you actually know?
Oh,
You know what I'm
uh,
saying? Like compared to what's actually in there.
yeah, there's a lot of smaller Old Testament stories I'm surprised were in there.
And then like it'd be different if you heard it at church, but you don't hear it. You hear the same daggone stories. So
You
that's
really?
what this yeah, this is what this section is talking about, man. Innovation has many dimensions. The Bible has many dimensions, right? Like how many I like these questions a lot. That's why I had it in white. Whose stories are not being told in the Bible? Whose stories are being highlighted? And whose stories are being neglected? There's a lot of stories being neglected. I would say there's more stories being neglected than are being told
Yeah.
in the Bible, right? And so that's another thing. Like Justin basically said, like, we gotta make sure we know all the stories in the Bible so that change can happen in our communities, because we can tell a story that needs to be told that can relate with our community for change to happen, right? That's why a lot of change don't happen, because we don't really know the Bible like that. We don't really know our identity. That's our identity, the Bible, right? So because we barely know it, we can't really relate with what's going on, well, what God has to say and what God wants to do. That's literally, wow, I got a huge revelation, Justin. That's literally the civil rights movement. Like that's what it was. Like these people knew that. Well, I would say just Martin Luther King and Malcolm X are a good example. Like they really knew history of Black people, And that was intimidating to everybody because they're not used to seeing an educated black man talk
Mm,
about the real truth of history. That's why they killed him. That's why they killed John F. Kennedy, because they were a threat to the people in power who, the principalities, the evildoers of this world, like these people who are spiritual, like they're literally demons. Like they're not even, that's what I'm starting to think. Like a lot of people who are leaders and hire us making decisions in this world, like you think they care for us? No. Like I don't think the Democrats and the Republicans are even enemies. I think they're living in cahoots with each other because they're getting paid either way. That's why nothing gets done, right? So like, yeah, like it's them versus us, the little people. And we're the 99%. We outnumber them, right? So in the Jim Crow time period, like these people, the civil rights movement, they knew their story. They knew black people history, they knew what was going on, and they knew what the word of God had to say about what needs to happen. And then eventually everybody caught on, okay, this is wrong. Like, but
mm,
before it wasn't really articulated like that. Even slavery. They didn't know slavery was wrong until it was articulated. So what's wrong right now? There's a lot of stuff that's wrong that needs to happen. Like a lot of change needs to happen. But it's only going to happen when all of us come together and can relate that message and know our identity, our history, our stories, so we can articulate it, for
mm.
change to happen, right? Because innovation has many dimensions. Like if we won't change, right, you gotta innovate. You gotta change and make it make sense, make it plain, right? This is literally what the scribes did. So yeah, this was deep, Justin. You had anything else, man? Like
I really no, I do like that. I don't have much to add because like you expressed it perfectly. We do need to find a way like to take our history and just mold it in a way that we can understand that is applicable, like
right,
can connect us. Because like history is like very powerful stuff. Like it it influences people or gives us hope. The only thing we need to do with it is find a way to get people interested in it or find a way for people to connect to that stuff.
right. And this
Mm.
was too good, man. I'm glad we saved this for last, man. Like this part right here, though. What you say, Justin?
Oh, I was saying, yeah, that was a good one. Yeah, because that's like the end towards the end of the chapter two, I think, too. So it is a good ending.
Right. I'm gonna read that last part to end the video. Like the flood story and the course story alert us to the possibilities for adopting new modes of storytelling as the world changes and as the church changes it. Mm. As the church changes it. Because the world is changing, guys.
Mm,
If you want to know one thing that doesn't change, God never changes.
mm,
God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And not only that, people may change, circumstances may change, your jobs may change. Can I get a hallelujah? Like your relationships may change. Like the people around you may change. Like everything in life changes. You even change every single day. But you want to know one thing that doesn't change? God doesn't change. God is still the same yesterday, today, and forever. We still need God every single day. So we need to adopt new modes of storytelling. There's a different way. There's a different way to slice a cat or skin a cat. What's that saying? So like,
yeah.
yeah. So in saying that, man, we gotta adopt new modes of storytelling. We can't tell the Bible in a way that we used to tell back in 1960 or back in Jesus' time period. That time's over with.
Mm,
We gotta preach the word for today. There's new modes of storytelling that needs to be told, and are we telling it? That's a heck to the no. There's a there's text in the Bible that talks about basically transgenders and what does God have to say about transgenderism, or is it ism? What you guys gonna say? What does God have to say about artificial intelligence? What does God have to say about the mark of the beast when that comes? We're in the end time. So what does God have to say about all these things? We gotta make sure as a church community, we're not changing our message. We're just changing with the world to convey the message in a way that they can hear, right? So that change could happen. So that's the whole point in every single time period. Change has to come. Change must happen, right? In order for things to get done, right? And
mm,
that's where we're at in every single time period, but even especially today. And I think honestly, Justin, I don't know what you think, but like we not the church and even believers aren't really changing like that. You know what I'm saying? Not like we should be. Like, and when I say change, I mean growing, evolving, learning, and growing so much in a sense that it matches with the change with the world. Because right now it's not matching with it. Like the
Mm.
church is nowhere near, which we're going to talk about. Actually, that would be that's a good segue, man. Because like I was going to talk about also how, you know, when it comes to everything we've been saying, if we're going to preach for today, what is today's time period? We're in a digital age, in a technological age. So we have to utilize the new media, the technical innovations that are in front of us. So when I just said what I said, I'm speaking from a technical perspective because I'm a computer scientist. I love computers. Nobody knows computers better than me. So Palantir, Tesla, you guys should totally hire me to be a chaplain or something so I can help with computers and articulation and stuff. But anyways, so like, yeah, there's new ways of preaching the gospel, right?
Yeah,
And
new platforms. Yeah.
yeah, and new platforms. But the church, some of us are doing it. But let me tell you something. Like
Yeah.
we're going to the next time period. You can't stay in this little digital technological computer age. Like we're evolving to something else now. So we have to evolve with the world around us. And
Yeah.
I think that's why the man, while say, you know, the principalities and evildoers, why they did that, to slow down the church, to keep them always lagging behind, so that their messages, so God's word doesn't, you know, it's not there, right? You see what I'm saying? Like it's always a lag, and that's where
Mm.
we're at right now. It's a lag, right? We gotta fight, guys. Like utilizing new media, new ways of teaching, new innovations, new ways of storytelling. That's what this author is talking about, right? This is how you preach the gospel for today. So, Justin, you good, man?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right, yeah, I had to hit on with that, man. That the video
Mm.
ended really good, man.
Yeah, that was a great ending.
Yeah. All right, guys, you know the drill. You go to my social media pages. Me and Justin are about to hit the hay and about to do our own things now.
Oh yeah.
So I pray you guys enjoyed our videos for this week. Me and
Mhm.
Justin go live every Friday or whenever we can, but we do 2 videos a week. Do our best to do that. So we've been pretty consistent with that. All right. So if you go to my YouTube channel, Uplift Past Crossroads, you'll see that I have a part 1 of this video that I just did. Me and Justin just did. So preach for today and preach for today part 2. That's this video. So make sure to watch all of our videos on my channel and on Justin's channel.
Mhm.
Make sure to like, comment, and share on all our videos. If you really enjoy hearing me and Justin talk, you can hear me and Justin talk way more. We just did about 91 videos now. So like this is where
Oh,
we're at. 91, 92. We're about to hit 100, Justin. We have like 100 behind us on our 100 videos.
oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
Right. All right. So guys, like I said before, this video ties in with this playlist, book breakdowns, book reviews I've done on my YouTube channel, Upload Past Crossroads. If you want to see us see even more videos that we've done on book reviews and stuff like that, check out this playlist. And also, if you enjoyed this book, these 2 videos will be going to this playlist. And me and Justin are not done with this book at all. It's just too much
Oh, yeah.
revelation there. So we'll be hitting you guys with way more. So check out that playlist. It's called, you know, the Old Testament for a Complex World. I couldn't put in the whole title of the video. Title of the book right there. All right, and then here goes Justin's YouTube channel, Chaplain's Log. Make sure to subscribe. After you subscribe, click the bell, and then you're notified anytime he uploads another video. But do the same on my channel as well. And then make sure to like, comment, and share. If you don't do those things, you're hurting our channel. Don't just subscribe, watch our stuff, comment, share, interact. And then you can DM us if you got any questions. Here goes Justin's Facebook page, mine, Sean Christopher Jenkins. You can DM us on our Facebook pages. We'll respond to your DMs and we'll answer your questions through a video like we always do. All right, so I pray you guys enjoyed this video. You guys have a great rest of your weekend. And be sure to tell people about Upload Past Crossroads, Sean Christopher Jenkins, and Chaplain's Log, Justin Lee Howell. So thanks for tuning in, guys. You guys have a great rest of your week. Kick major butt, and don't let the devil get the best of you. You get the best of him. Kick the devil in the tail and receive the victory in Jesus' name. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. Peace out.
Nice.